Thank you. I want to thank the sponsors of this conference, and of course, Patrick Kennedy. You know, whatever successes we have had, and whatever successes we ultimately will have, will come as a result of the force, the moral force, the personal force of Patrick Kennedy and people like him. And there aren't many like him, so we're lucky to have him on our side. And then we woke up this morning and found out that we were wrong. How did we get here? How did it come to this? Let's do what lawyers do, what I do, look at the record. It began, sadly, in the 1990s with the unjustified listing of MEK as a foreign terrorist organization, not because it was, not because there was any basis for it, but because it was hoped that that would begin a dialogue with the mullahs. Obviously, that didn't work. Then came the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And as you've heard, the residents of Camp Ashraf surrendered their weapons to the United States military, and they were given a guarantee in writing, signed by a United States general, that they would get the protections of the Fourth Geneva Convention. They would be treated as protected persons. And each of them was issued an identity card with the telephone number of the United States forces so that they could use it to call for help if trouble came. That was how solemn the guarantee was. The United States government gave its word. The unjustified placement on the list of foreign terrorist organizations, regrettably, was continued in the administration in which I served, because it was thought that, well, if we remove them from the list, my goodness, the Iranians might get upset, and they might do things like send IEDs into Iraq to kill American troops, which of course they did anyway. And then came 2009 and 2011, and Iraqi troops using weapons and vehicles supplied by the United States attacked and killed residents of Ashraf, and we have video of that. Shot them in cold blood and at will. And the suggestion was made by the United Nations that somehow there was a fight. They thought they were in combat. Take a look at those videos. The Iraqi troops weren't even wearing helmets. They knew they were not in danger. They were shooting people in cold blood, and they knew it. And they were using U.S.-supplied weapons and U.S.-supplied vehicles, and we knew it. And we washed our hands. At Iraqi insistence, at the behest of Iran, that Ashraf be abandoned, the United States pressured the residents of Ashraf to abandon the safety of that camp. And the U.S. Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, testified before Congress that she would consider, and it was in her gift to remove that designation, she would consider the willingness of MEK to leave Ashraf and to move to an abandoned military base that had been looted by the Iraqis. She would consider that in a decision to remove MEK from that list, even though that had nothing whatsoever to do with whether the group was a terrorist organization or not. And Mayor Giuliani and I traveled to Paris and met with Mrs. Rajavi and with Martin Kobler, and with his assurance, his two-faced, duplicitous, lying assurance that the residents of Ashraf, as they then were, would be protected if they moved to Camp Liberty? We urged her. I feel terribly guilty about this. We urged her to please ask the residents of Ashraf to move peacefully to Camp Liberty, because we were told by Martin Kobler that that's where the UN High Commissioner for Refugees could conduct interviews in aid of getting people out. And so she did, and so they did, and nothing happened. Well, UNHCR has done whatever interviewing it has to do, and everybody, other than the people who have died in the interim, are still at Camp Liberty. That's how we got to where we are. And then came the attack last night. And Martin Kobler? What did Martin Kobler say this morning when he heard about this attack? He said that explosions had occurred in the camp, as if it were spontaneous. And then he said that Iraqi policemen had been injured in the attack, as if to suggest that somehow the Iraqis weren't responsible for it. And what do we learn from all of this? We learn that this is what happens when a great nation and a well-conceived organization like the United Nations don't live up to their ideals. This is where you get. The United Nations is the organization that opposed attacks, opposed belligerency all over the world, in Korea, elsewhere. You mean to say that the United Nations can't oppose this? Nonsense. The Security Council can act. Let them act. And whether they act or not, the United States put the residents of Liberty in the position they are in. We have a moral responsibility to get them out of it, and to get them out of it now. Thank you.